If you work in banking, your job might be at risk. You need to hear this before it's too late.
All right, welcome in everyone, kicking off another deep dive here. And today, well, we're tackling the future of jobs in banking.
The future of jobs in banking.
Yeah, it's something that a lot of you have been pointing us towards. There's tons of research out there, reports, and we figured, well, let's dive into it. Let's see what we can find.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the core question, right, looking 10, 20 years down the line, what roles in banking are going to grow,
Right.
and which ones might actually start to shrink or even disappear.
Absolutely.
And this is relevant whether you're thinking about your own career or you're just interested in how the larger economy is shifting and changing. Banking is such a major sector. It's got to be a good indicator of bigger trends.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great kind of microcosm of the economy in a way, because
Yeah.
it's such a big industry. It touches so many people's lives.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's being transformed massively at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those industries where if you can understand what's happening there with the jobs, you can probably, predict what's going to happen in other industries too.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And the stuff you sent over, it's a great mix. We've got, reports from these giant consulting firms, McKinsey, Accenture, Deloitte.
Yeah.
We've got stuff from LinkedIn, from the World Economic Forum, some articles from the Economic Times, some interesting pieces from UXDA, which is a financial UX design firm. So it's a really nice, multifaceted view.
Yeah.
So what we want to do in this deep dive is really extract like the most crucial information from all of this, right? Like we want to understand what are the key things that are happening in this job market without you having to go and spend days reading through all these reports.
So, I mean, maybe we can kick things off by talking about the big picture trends, right? Like, what are the forces that are really changing banking, employment, reshaping the landscape?
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like from looking at all this that there are a few really major things happening.
Okay.
One is just this, this relentless drive towards automation.
Right.
Digital is everything becoming more digital, more online.
Yeah. Sure.
And you've got AI, artificial intelligence, which is getting, increasingly sophisticated, more and more integrated into every aspect of banking.
Yeah.
The way that customers want to interact with banks is changing rapidly.
Yeah.
Like convenience is king, right?
Yeah.
Everything has to be digital. Everything has to be, on demand.
It has to be frictionless.
Exactly, frictionless. And then, of course, you can't forget about the regulatory environment, which seems to just be getting more and more complex.
Yeah, definitely. And McKinsey's report, it really hits on that point. So they're projecting that global banking assets are going to like massively grow over the next 10 years.
Wow.
So they're saying that like assets, in banking globally are going to go from something like $370 trillion to like potentially $550 trillion.
That's massive growth.
It is. However, they also say that there's going to be like a potential squeeze on the average return on equity.
Okay.
Which basically means that like how profitable banks are for the people that own them is probably going to come under a bit of pressure.
I see.
So you've got this big growth, but there's this potential like squeeze on profitability.
Got it.
And if that happens, then banks are going to be looking for ways to like get more efficient, do more with less.
Right.
And that's where the kind of automation and this changing job roles comes in.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's get into, I mean, given those big forces that you've outlined, let's talk about the roles that seem to be on the rise, right?
Yeah.
Like, who are the folks that are going to be in really high demand in banking over the next couple of decades?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that really came through clearly across all the sources is the importance of data.
Okay.
Right? So banks, obviously banks have been gathering huge amounts of data for years.
Right.
But now they're starting to really use that data to make better decisions, to personalize the services that they offer. And McKinsey actually they talk about this a lot. So it's not just about hiring more data scientists or data engineers. It's about like changing the culture of banking so that it's more data driven.
Makes sense. It's like you've got this treasure trove of information.
Yeah.
And now you're actually starting to figure out how to mine it, how to use it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the tools have caught up with the amount of data that's available.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay, so data, big area of growth. What else? What are some other areas where demand is really surging?
Well, kind of building on that data
Mhm.
foundation, I guess, is
Mhm.
the whole area of AI and machine learning.
Right.
So, I mean, AI is being used in so many different ways in banking now. I mean, you think about things like uh, fraud detection,
Mm.
right? So,
Mhm.
using algorithms to spot fraudulent transactions before they happen. You've got things like personalized financial advice.
Okay.
So, AI-powered apps that can help people manage their money. You've even got things like, chatbots being used for customer service.
Right.
So all of these things are being powered by AI. And Accenture, they're predicting that AI could boost productivity in banking by 20 to 30%.
Wow, that's huge. That's a huge jump.
Yeah, I mean that's massive.
Okay. So the clever machines are coming online,
They are.
and we need people to build them, to manage them.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, with all this, increasing reliance on technology, what about the whole area of keeping everything safe and secure?
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely crucial, right? So
Yeah.
so cybersecurity is another area where there's going to be massive demand
Okay.
because as we rely more and more on technology, the risks, the cyber risks, are also increasing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So banks need to protect their systems. They need to protect their customers' data.
Yeah.
And Deloitte actually they talk a lot about this in their report. They
Right.
they emphasize how important cybersecurity is going to be in the future of banking.
It makes sense, right? Because if customers don't feel like their money and their information is safe, then nothing else really matters. Yeah,
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's not just about creating all these great digital services.
Yeah.
You got to make sure people actually know about them
Yeah.
and that they want to use them,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So how do banks actually connect with customers in this new digital world?
Yeah, I mean that's where the whole area of digital marketing comes in.
Okay.
So, the online space is very competitive these days.
Oh, yeah.
And banks need people who can reach potential customers online, who
Mhm.
can build the bank's brand online, who can keep existing customers engaged.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn, they highlight this in their report as well.
Okay.
There's a growing need for these digital marketing skills within the finance sector.
So it's not just about creating great digital services.
Yeah.
It's about making sure that people actually know about them
Yeah.
and that they're drawn to use them.
Exactly.
And once they are using them, the experience has got to be top notch, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, nobody wants to use a clunky banking app.
Right.
Nobody wants to use a website that's difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
So this is where customer experience designers come in.
Okay.
And they're often referred to as UX designers, so user experience designers,
Right.
or UI designers, user interface designers.
Got it.
And their job is really to make sure that the banking apps, the websites, all the digital interfaces that customers use, that they're intuitive, they're easy to use. Ideally, they're actually enjoyable to use.
Right, right.
And UXDA, actually, being a UX design firm, they really talk about this shift towards customer-centric design.
Yeah. Make it seamless, make it almost invisible, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Take the pain out of banking.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Okay. Now, we've talked about all this technology.
Yeah.
We've talked about, the regulatory environment. But even with all of that, I imagine there are some more traditional areas that are still really important.
Yeah, I mean you're absolutely right. So, one area that's not going away is compliance and risk management,
Okay.
right? So the financial world is very heavily regulated.
Mm.
And those regulations are getting more complex all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
So banks need people who can understand those regulations,
Mhm.
who can make sure that the bank is operating, legally and ethically.
Right.
And both the World Economic Forum and then Deloitte, they highlight the importance of these roles.
Right.
So there's always going to be a need for people who can manage risk and ensure compliance.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. You got to balance all that innovation with responsibility.
Right. And making sure you're playing by the rules. And there's one more area actually that feels particularly relevant. these days. Yeah, I think you're probably talking about green and sustainable finance.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
so the whole, the whole global push towards sustainability, towards, addressing climate change, that's having a big impact on the financial industry as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And so there's a growing need for people who understand green finance, who understand sustainable investing.
Hmm.
And Deloitte, they talk about this as a key growth area.
They do.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a sense now of the rules that are expanding.
Yeah.
Let's flip the script and talk about, the other side of the coin.
Okay.
What are the rules that might actually see a decline in the years ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the most prominent area here is bank tellers,
Okay.
right? And traditional branch rules.
Got it.
So, I mean, the shift to online and mobile banking has really changed how people do their everyday banking,
Absolutely.
right? Most people don't go to bank branches anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so the need for people to handle those face-to-face transactions, it's decreasing.
Yeah, yeah,
And both the Economic Times and UXDA, they've documented this.
Yeah.
There's been job losses in these areas.
Right.
And UXDA actually pointed out that this trend was accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Makes sense. I mean, I think for most of us now, going into a physical bank branch is a pretty rare event.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What other kinds of roles might face a decrease in demand?
Well, I think another area is lower level clerical jobs.
Okay.
So I mean, these are the kinds of jobs that involve very repetitive tasks.
Okay.
Things like basic data entry.
Yeah.
A lot of those tasks are being automated now through software and AI.
Right.
And the Economic Times, they actually cited some research from BCG that looked at this trend, and they said, yeah, I mean, these are the kinds of jobs that are likely to be replaced by machines.
Right. It's the stuff that machines can often do more efficiently
Exactly.
and more accurately.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about roles that are more specific to traditional banking processes?
Yeah, I mean, another area that's probably going to see some decline is traditional loan processing roles.
Okay.
So the process of evaluating loan applications,
Oh.
of processing loans,
Mhm.
parts of that are being automated.
Yeah.
And that means that you don't need as many people to do those jobs.
Right.
And Accenture, they actually mentioned this in their analysis as well.
Okay. So it's the more routine, the more transactional kinds of roles that seem to be most vulnerable to these shifts.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
But you mentioned something earlier that I think is a really important nuance here.
Yeah,
Which is that, roles might not just disappear completely.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's not just about jobs going away.
Yeah.
It's about jobs changing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we were talking about bank tellers, for example.
Right.
Maybe the traditional bank teller role, the person who just stands behind the counter and cashes checks and counts out money, maybe that role does decline.
Right.
But maybe those bank tellers become, more like advisors.
Okay.
So, they're there to help customers with more complex financial products.
Yeah.
They're there to provide, more personalized support.
Yeah.
The kind of support that you can't get from a machine.
Right. Right.
And McKinsey, they actually talk about this potential for reskilling.
Okay.
So it's not just about jobs being lost. It's about jobs evolving.
That's a much more encouraging outlook, right?
Well, yeah.
Because it's not necessarily about mass job losses in every area.
Yeah.
It's about the need for people to adapt, to learn new skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is not just speculation. Like
Oh,
we're
no.
seeing this play out in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So the LinkedIn report on UK finance workforce is a really good example of this.
Okay.
So they've seen a decline in some of the more traditional roles,
Mm-hmm.
like sales roles, customer-facing roles.
Okay.
But at the same time, they've seen growth in things like legal roles, software roles.
Got it.
So this is very much in line with the kind of broader trends that we're talking about.
Yeah, it's a consistent pattern across different regions.
Yeah.
Okay. So for someone who's listening, right?
Yeah.
Who might be in one of these roles that's potentially declining, or maybe they're just starting out in their career.
Yeah.
What's the key message here in terms of how to navigate this changing landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge that there is a risk of job displacement,
Right.
right? I mean, some jobs are going to go away.
Yeah.
But, the banking industry itself has an interest in retaining talent,
Right.
in adapting its workforce.
Yeah.
So they're going to be looking for ways to reskill people, to restructure jobs. And the World Economic Forum, actually, they highlight this in their report.
Okay.
They say that reskilling and restructuring are going to be key strategies for banks in years ahead.
Got it.
So, for individuals, I think it's about being proactive. It's about, looking for opportunities to learn new skills, particularly in those areas that we've identified where there's growth.
Right. The data science, AI, cybersecurity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Digital marketing.
Yeah.
These are the areas where the jobs are going to be.
Yeah. Okay, so to sum it all up, our deep dive into the future of banking jobs.
Yeah.
It reviews a couple of really key things.
Right.
One is that technology and changing customer expectations, those are the big drivers.
Yeah.
Those are the dominant forces shaping everything.
Yeah.
We're seeing really strong growth in tech-related roles and also in specialized advisory roles,
Yes.
right? Like you were saying, the bank teller who becomes more of a financial advisor.
Yeah.
And on the other side of the coin, the more traditional transactional roles, those are the ones that are likely to decline or to undergo this kind of transformation.
Yeah, I think that's a really clear and concise summary of what is a very complex but important shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And that leads us to our final thought for you, the listener.
Okay.
We've been talking about banking.
Yeah.
But as you're thinking about these changes, think about how they might reflect or even predict changes that are happening in other industries that you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Right, like what skills, what areas of expertise, what kinds of roles might become more valuable across different fields, regardless of the specific industry.
It's a good question to think about.
It is. It's something for all of us to consider as we navigate this evolving world of work.
Absolutely.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive today.
It was great to be here.
Want to future-proof your career? Make sure to hit subscribe for more insights.